Following the scramble of Africa in the latter end of the 19th century, Ethiopia stood as one of the only two independent nations left in Africa. There were attempts to take over this nation through diplomacy, but only one war was fought against the European power to keep Ethiopian independence. In this video, we will be looking at the First Italian-Ethiopian War. On March the 25th of 1889, the Shewa ruler Menelik II declared himself Emperor of Ethiopia. Barely a month later, on May the 2nd, he signed the Treaty of Meqele with the Italians, which apparently gave them control over Eritrea, the Red Sea coast to the northeast of Ethiopia, in return for recognition of Menelik's rule. However, the bilingual treaty did not say the same thing in Italian and Amharic. The Italian version did not give the Ethiopians the quote-unquote significant autonomy written in the Amharic translation. The former text essentially established an Italian protectorate over Ethiopia, but the Amharic version merely stated that Menelik could contact foreign powers and conduct foreign affairs through Italy if he chose so. Italy, in turn, claimed that Ethiopia was as their protectorate, and pretty much all of the European nations outside of Russia and the Ottoman Empire recognized this claim. The reason that the Europeans largely were okay with this was due to the alliance system in place currently. The Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy was under some stress, and England tried to court Italy. Two secret protocols in 1891 left most of Ethiopia in Italian sphere of influence. France and Russia continued to support Ethiopia at this point, while the Germans and Austro-Hungarians supported Italy, but outside of armed support, limited assistance was given to either side. With his control over Ethiopia largely secured, Menelik revoked the Italian treaty. In response, the Italians annexed small territories bordering their original claim, and finally invaded the nation in late 1894. It was originally expected that a variety of vassals under Ethiopia would defect to the Italians, but with the invasion, all of them rallied behind Menelik. The Italians themselves had to face a rebellion in Eritrea, which was quickly crushed. The Ethiopians tried to use this and attempted to invade Eritrea, but were repulsed at the Battle of Kotik, occupying the regional capital of Adawa shortly after. The victory in this campaign, along with previous victories against the Sudanese, led the Italians to underestimate the difficulties to overcome in the coming campaign against Menelik. As the Italians were poised to enter Ethiopian territory, the Ethiopians mobilized en masse all over the country, amassing an army of over 200,000 troops, with half of them being armed with modern weaponry. The next clash came at Amba Alagi on December the 7th of 1895, when Ethiopian soldiers overran the Italian positions dug in on the natural fortress, and they forced the Italians to retreat to Eritrea, leaving just half of the Italian army within the country. A small Italian garrison was put at an unfinished fort at Meqele, while the rest of the army attempted to concentrate into one, under the command of General Oreste Baratieri. The first Ethiopian troops reached Meqele in the following days and besieged it for a little over a week. Heavily outnumbered, Baratieri refused to engage, knowing that due to their lack of infrastructure, the Ethiopians could not keep large numbers of troops in the field much longer. However, Baratieri also never knew about the true numerical strength of the Ethiopian army that he was about to face, so he further fortified his position. However, the Italian government was unable to accept being beaten by non-Europeans. The Prime Minister ordered him to advance deep into enemy territory and bring about a battle. The decisive battle of the war was the Battle of Adwa on March the 1st of 1896. Baratieri planned to surprise the Ethiopian forces with an early morning attack, expecting his enemy to be asleep. However, the Ethiopians had risen early for church services, and upon learning of the Italian advance, attacked themselves. The Italians were hit by wave after wave of attacks until Menelik released a reserve of 25,000 men, destroying an Italian brigade. Another brigade was cut off and destroyed by a cavalry charge. The last two brigades were destroyed piecemeal, and and by noon, the Italians were in full retreat. Menelik then returned his forces to the capital as the news reached Italy. Once it did, riots broke out in several cities, and the Crispi government was overthrown. Following the overthrow, the Treaty of Addis Ababa was signed in October, which defined the borders of Eritrea and forced Italy to recognize the independence of Ethiopia. Delegates from the UK and France soon arrived in the Ethiopian capital to negotiate their own treaties with this newly proven power. While this war showed the might of Africa's last independent nation, sorry Liberia, you don't count, it sadly would be somewhat short-lived. The Italians would come back nearly 4 decades later and attempt once again to remove Ethiopian independence, but that is a topic for another time. I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's a topic that you would like me to cover in the future, write so down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time.